Can you tell me your name and how old you were in January of 1937?
My name is Bob Feldman. I was 9 years old in 1937.
Can you tell me what neighborhood did you live when the flood was happening?
We lived at Second and Clay in Dayton, Kentucky, and the area was always known as oh hell, Sandy Hook.
Oh my God, I've heard of Sandy.
Um, can you tell me what your most vivid memory of the flood was? Or
Well, mostly I guess when we stepped off of the second floor porch into a rowboat to get out of the house.
where did the flood reach in your house?
About a foot and a half below the second floor ceiling.
Wow. My God.
And where did you go in the boat? Do you remember? Can you talk about the boat ride and where did it go, where
Well,
it took you?
I don't know if it was my dad or one of my uncles rode us up there, up to the on Clay Street toward it, out of the water, and then we went from there up to my great grandma's house up on 6th Street.
Is that who you stayed with during when it got
We
bad?
stayed there for about a week or so, and then we went from there. We went up to my dad's sister's house. She lived up on the hill on Terrace Avenue in Dayton.
How long did it take before you were you able to go back to the house, and how long did it take before you could go back to the house?
I don't remember how long the flood was up, but after the flood went down, we went back down to the same house. Of course, it had to be cleaned up like everybody else's.
Do you remember what it looked like, your house, after the flood receded?
A general mess.
Can you
Mostly, like everybody else, it was full of mud. Oh, anything was in there was ruined. Was all floated up around, All the furniture and anything in there was ruined.
And how long did it take? Do you remember any idea how long it took before things were sort of back to normal, like when you got new furniture or
No, I don't remember. Like I say, I was only 9 years old and don't remember too much.
Were you involved at all with helping clean up? Did you remember
Yeah,
having to do
my
anything?
brother and I both had to do a little help.
Who else were there? Who else was living in the house? I mean, how big was your family?
Just my mom and dad and me and my brother.
How'd your parents react? Do you remember? To the flood and the mess?
Didn't have any choice. Either you got out or you done like everybody else did. You had to put up with it and make the best of it.
Were there a lot of people in rowboats when you were in your rowboat?
Well, there was only me and my brother, and I think my dad and my uncle. About 4 people in the boat when we moved out.
But did you see other boats?
Oh yeah, there's everybody. Well, I won't say everybody had a rowboat, but there was probably a dozen rowboats in the neighborhood.
Wasn't it really cold?
No, it wasn't. Surprisingly, it was rather warm.
That was, just speaking from what I know about the weather at the time, that was part of what caused the flood, because
It was so warm, yeah.
it had warmed up and melted all the snow, and then you got record rains, and it was the perfect storm.
1935, 36. The weather was bad, and then the next year it warmed up and stayed warm. 37, it was almost like a summer day. Well, not like a summer day, but an early spring day.
So when you were staying at your grandmom's house, what were you doing? Just listening to the radio for news? What were you guys doing all day?
Well, doing a lot of nothing because there wasn't anything to do. There was, in that house at that time, there was, counting everybody, I think there was something like 20 or 30 people.
Wow.
My great-grandma lived on the second floor in the basement, and then the first floor was rented out. And the people on the first floor had, I don't know, 6 or 8 people living with them. And then my mom and her sisters and brothers and their kids was all staying, mostly we stayed in the basement. But at one time, I think there was probably, like I say, there was 20 or 30 people in that house for a day or two, and then they start spreading out.
Did you listen to the radio a lot?
Yeah, that's all you had to do was listen to the radio.
What were some of the programs you were listening to?
Oh, I don't know. That's cute. They always had the radio on, trying to get information and get news on the flood. Other than that, I don't remember what was on.
Interesting.
Chris, you have any other questions you want to ask?
Oh, boy.
You said something about you didn't have running water.
Well, nobody did.
Do you remember going to watering stations to get water with buckets and such?
No, because they turned the water on periodically, and then they turned it off in different sections. I different areas, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember that because, like I said, I wasn't that old.
Did you leave Dayton during the flood? Or did you ever leave Dayton during the flood? Or did you
No.
stay close to your great-grandmother's house?
Stayed close to there. There wasn't that and my aunt's house up on Terrace Avenue.
Who was that? What was her name?
That was Emma Hall.
And that was Grandpa's sister?
Yeah.
Did you go to school during the flood?
No.
Okay.
Didn't do nothing but kill time.
Did anybody?
No.
All the schools were closed?
Everything was closed. Spears Hospital they had to close that.
That was the
They
hospital.
moved all the patients up to the Dayton High School and made Dayton High School a makeshift hospital. That was up on 8th Street between mine and Walnut.
That building's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's condominium or
It's old folks' home now, isn't it?
what?
Isn't that like senior housing now?
Yeah. Senior housing now, yes.
Can you talk about you didn't have any water and did you have food? How did you get food and water when you were at your grandmom's house?
Well, the grocery stores, that wasn't flooded out, was still doing a little business, whatever they had in stock, and then like I said, they turned the water on. They'd make an announcement on the radio that the water will be on in certain sections at certain times, so you tried to draw as much water as you could in pots and pans and buckets, whatever you could put it in.
Because I did read that in the paper. I've been looking through a lot of newspapers from the time, and they would talk about the water would be on for like 1 hour a day in this neighborhood or that neighborhood. So that makes sense. It does.
So, unless you got more questions, the final question I have here is, what would you like us to know about the 1937 flood?
It was big. I don't know, other than, like everybody else, it was, put a lot of people out, caused a lot of damage. So other than that, it's just like
Did it make a lot of people in your neighborhood, like Sandy Hook, move?
everybody had to move out, yeah. And down there, the water was 10, 15, 20 feet deep.
Did a lot of
anybody
people
move back?
Did a lot of people just not come back?
There's quite a few of them didn't come back, but a lot of people in 1937 in the Depression, you didn't have any money, you didn't have any choice, you had to go back.
Because I know unemployment was 14% in January 1937. So,
If people down there lived in Sandy Hook had a job, if they made $15 a week, they was making good money.
What was your father doing then?
Nothing,
He
Odd
wasn't
jobs.
working then?
huh?
He didn't work at all?
Well, he always had a truck and doing whatever he could with a truck. Moving people, hauling stuff.
What was your grandfather doing? Is the grandfather, the one that worked at King's, the same as the grandmother that you stayed with?
That was was his mother, yeah,
Oh, so it was your.
our great grandma.
So you were staying with your great grandmother's
Yeah.
house. Oh, okay. Well, what was he doing during the flood? Was he able to work? Was he doing machinist work?
He was working for a machine shop in Cincinnati, I think. They was out of business too. The flood got them too. So I don't know what he was doing really.
do you remember your great grandma? Because she would have lived through like the 1913 flood. There were really 1884 and 1913 were the other really bad floods.
Yeah.
And do you ever remember her making references to that? Cause she,
No, just that people are that was old enough to remember that I could tell you that, we're getting close to the 1913 stage or mark. And we're at the mark. We're over the mark.
Okay.
So did you have a sense of, I assumed that you moved all your furniture up to the second floor thinking that it would be safe then?
That's what happened. Yes.
And so that it was all just lost?
After the water got so deep, if you couldn't haul it out on a rowboat, it was lost.
And did you get any personal effects out of the house?
Well, whatever you thought about taking out before the water got to it.
I mean, pots, pans, pictures, clothes, shit like that?
No,
Oh, you'll
you
have to
didn't
edit
worry.
shit.
You didn't worry about pots and pans, stuff like that. You got your clothes out, personal items, a few personal items. You got them out, and that was all.
And took those in the boat with you?
Well, this rowboat was going up and down the street day and night, all night long.
Where did you get the rowboat from?
Well, whoever had one, usually they was all homemade.
Huh.
They were made for the flood.
No, that people had them before the flood. When down there on the river, there was a lot of rowboats, John boats they call them.
How far away? I mean, you lived on Dayton, but how far away was the Ohio River? How far of a walk was that from your house?
Well, we lived a second in Clay. You went from there down to Front Street, then you was on the riverbank. It was 500 feet, maybe not even that far.
So you saw it coming, huh?
Well, everybody was watching it. Anybody that lived down there always was watching, see how far it was up from any given time to another given time, see how much it raised.
Do you remember the 36 flood? Because it flooded in 36 too. It just wasn't as bad.
It flooded in, I don't remember that, when it was, 35 or 36.
Did you ever, when you were looking at having your own house when you were older, did you ever think about the flood, considering that?
No, I never did because I always stayed away. Tried to naturally stayed away from the river, and I didn't like the water. And
You want something to drink, Dad?
I got water
Oh,
here.
okay.
I can't think of anything else really.
Okay. You got anything else you want to tell us? I can't think of anything else to ask, but if there was something we missed that we.
Well, like I
Anything
said, they
you
had
wanna
to
share?
move
Tell them what you got from the Red Cross.
they had to move the hospital out. they moved that up at the high school, made the high school a makeshift hospital. After the flood, a lot of people got a lot of furniture and got a lot of help. We didn't get anything except that wardrobe that he's got
I can give you a picture
and
of
a
that.
bed that
Really?
the Red Cross bought from somebody and gave it to us, and that was the extent of what we had given to us.
Why did a lot of people get a lot?
Huh.
Were they well
Because
connected?
a lot of people had brass balls enough to go and demand this, and demand that, and bother
You're on
everybody
camera, Phil.
till they got what they wanted.
Well, the truth needs to be told, needs to be heard.
Yeah, because it's interesting reading in the paper. There's some claims of, like you're saying, some people were complaining about the Red Cross because they weren't getting enough help from them, and then other areas were getting a lot more help. And Washington Park in Cincinnati was used as a place by the Red Cross for boats. They stored. I have this wonderful picture of the park with it's in the exhibit. It has like 400 boats scattered all over Washington Park
Well,
from the Red Cross and from individuals.
like I said, there people there in 1934, 35, 36. There's quite a few rowboats down there on the river. People owned them, but they used them for fishing, and I shouldn't tell this, but I guess it will. Rowing coal off of barges on the river. That was a common practice.
You'd steal coal off of boats? Well, not you.
Off the barges.
There was many a ton of coal come up over that riverbank, come off of barges.
How long was it before you moved back into the house then? If the
Couple
flood was
of
in
weeks after the
January,
water went down.
Just a couple weeks.
you were back in like by February? Or March?
Well, whatever the dates was, yes.
February 5th is when it fell below flood stage.
When?
February 5th.
February the 5th. Well, we was back in by the end of February then.
Really?
Probably before that.
And you had electric and water running again?
Yeah.
Just can only imagine the mess.
Did you?
In fact, Watford watch case up there at 5th and Clay was in front of their building, 4th and Clay. They had a spring in their basement. And they tested the water, and it was good, clean water, so they run a pipe from that spring out to the outside, and that water run, of course, like I said, it was a spring, so it run day and night. A lot of people went up there then to get water
Huh.
before the water was turned back on. That was one thing that Wadsworth did for the city.
Is that building still there?
Huh?
That building's gone now too,
No,
isn't
they
it?
tore that building down. That was,
For the flood wall.
So when you moved back in the house, how long was it before you actually had a bed you could sleep in? What were you sleeping on?
we had that one bed, and brother and I was sleeping on the floor for a while. And then we got to start getting a little more furniture, a little at a time, a little more at a time, till you finally got what you needed.
Do you remember where you were getting your new furniture from, or was it just hand-me-downs from relatives, or?
A lot of it was hand-me-downs, a lot of it was secondhand that you had a couple of dollars you could afford to buy, and wherever you get a hold of something, you took it.
Nothing from the Red Cross, huh?
Very little. Very, very little.
It's really something.
Well, I can't think of anything.
Did you own or did you rent the house?
We owned it. My grandpa, I think, owned it, not us.
Did he eventually sell it?
How many years did you live there beyond the flood?
Till 1941, I think it was, 41 flood.
So the flood is what made him move eventually just to move out.
Yeah. We moved out in the 41 flood. My mom said she ain't going back down the flood area, so we didn't go back.
And that's when you moved to Bellevue to the house, to the
Yes.
barn.
Yes.
Huh,
And it doesn't flood there.
no.
Don't they have a flood wall there, right? But when was that built? Don't they have some?
Dayton.
Dayton has a flood wall now.
Where his house
And their
was.
house was torn down in the
Yeah.
70s?
Huh?
Wasn't it torn down in like the 70s?
Tore down whenever.
That's when Bill and Ethel moved in next door to us. And their house was torn down for the flood wall. Bill and Ethel
Oh,
Frummel.
yeah.
Frummel.
Bill and Ethel Frummel.
You make a good historian.
Well, Christ, they lived right next door to us for years.
Yeah, now I remember now.
But they lived in Dayton and their house was torn down and that was in the 70s.
Their house was tore down for the flood wall.
Yeah.
And
It
your
wasn't-
old house too, right?
Yeah.
So it stood up until then.
'Cause
Yeah,
I-
it
So the-
was whenever they started on the flood wall.
So the house was torn down was sacrificed for a flood wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's some irony there.
Because I do remember when they were, I remember Al Shadakati doing a report when I was in high school in Dayton, showing the houses being torn down to build the flood wall. So that would have been in the 70s, yeah, late 70s.
I don't remember what year it was.
Wasn't there a beach in Dayton?
Yeah, that was way back when, but there was in Bellevue too. Don't ask me the name of it because I don't know.
Wasn't it
I
Tacoma?
know approximately where they were, but
I think, was the Bellevue Beach where the Bellevue Park is now? Right
I
there?
think that was part of it. Close to it, yes.
Okay.
The one in Dayton, I can't remember.